They say it takes a village to raise a child, but I've learned it also takes a village to gaslight a woman. In previous episodes, I talked about the digital prison, the hidden devices, the GitHub accounts, the growls, and the whispers. Today, I'm talking about the cult and the flying monkeys, the collaborators, the watchers, and the girls brought into my home to help a man haunt my life. I know there were multiple people involved and multiple girls, but there is one specific girl. I call her his Karla Homolka. She is the one I believe helps him with his sadistic acts, the one who helped him torture me and try to make me look crazy. On multiple occasions, I heard a female voice whispering throughout my house, both when he was here and after he was gone. She called me names and took part in this entire sick game. I truly believe he has been connected to this cult for years, at least back to 2019. But my gut tells me it started even before I met him. I've realized he uses a wife or a girlfriend as a cover up. He finds someone who can make him look like a good family man, while behind the scenes, he is pure evil. He said something to me back in 2020 that always stayed in the back of my mind. He was getting ready to go to the corner store, apparently, and mumbled under his breath, "They can't know you're back." At the time, I thought he was talking about maybe other girls. But to be honest, I could never make sense of that comment until everything came to light this past year. Whenever I would call him out on any of his absurd comments or behaviors, he always either got mad or completely brushed it off. There was never an explanation for anything, and I was always the problem. I was always looking for something. The cheating is one of the things that led to our breakup in 2021. I couldn't really get solid proof or evidence back then, but I knew something was off. That's how he was able to manipulate his way back in this time. He convinced me I was just paranoid before, but now I know. He didn't come back for love. He came back to destroy my business and break my mind. When I finally went to the police after we had broken up this last time, I had screenshots of him logging into the mirror website he created for my security system. I had multiple photos, videos, and proof of what was going on. But the officers I dealt with were worse than useless and made it pretty obvious they were not interested in wasting any time checking evidence. Looking back, I don't even think they ever took a statement. They came and asked what the problem was, and when I told them, almost instantly you could tell they were not going to take me seriously. And I didn't even mention the recordings or the growls or the whispers throughout my home that I had been dealing with for months leading up to this point. They stood in my house and looked at me like I was the problem. I told them if anything happens to me or my kids, it's coming from these people. Well, a few months later, my oldest son was the victim of a hit and run while on his scooter. I don't know for a fact that it's connected to what I was going through because there's never been a proper investigation. We had a video of the car and witnesses, and they still didn't press charges. I called the station for months after the incident, and they would just say it's under investigation. When I asked if they had gone to the person's house, the officer told me they basically didn't have enough to go to the house. That I don't understand at all. You know, this person hit someone with their car and took off. You have a video from a bystander at the scene of the incident, the license plate, and you can't go to the house? What world are we living in? Are all cops like this or just the ones where I'm from? The treatment I received from the police is a huge contributor to my CPTSD. On one occasion, I had just reached out to the police to make sense of an event that just happened. When they got there, I was on my front porch. I briefly told them what I had experienced and my concerns. My oldest son was in the house being extremely loud, so I turned to look inside the door to see what was going on. And the female officer looked at me and asked, "Do you think you hear something?" She was implying I was hallucinating. I then looked at the male cop standing right next to me and said, "Did you not hear my son?" He replied, "Yes," confirming that he heard my son as well. But I had to ask him. He didn't just speak up and tell his partner that, yeah, her son is being loud. I realized that day that I was truly on my own with this entire nightmare. And the more I reached out to them for help, the more they were going to discredit everything I say and try to make me look crazy. The police came to my house, I think a total of maybe 4 times. The only reason why I continued to call after the first dismissal was because these predators kept coming to my house at night. They were going in my garage and creeping around the outside of my home. Right after he left, they didn't waste any time. They would whistle outside my bedroom window and make other odd noises, including the bird noise, to make sure I knew it was them. My neighbor was a witness to the nightly stalking tactics. She heard them as well on multiple occasions. I told the cops to go to speak to my neighbor, but they never did. Even my neighbors were in shock at the treatment I received, the lack of care and investigation. The last night I ever reached out to the police for help was the night I promised myself I would not only tell my story, but create a podcast and a space for others going through the same thing. After letting them know the reasons for me calling, they dismissed everything I said and asked if I would pass a drug test. The officer even had the nerve to ask me, why would he do this? Are you kidding me? Why would he do that? Because men like Paul Bernardo and Ted Bundy exist. Because evil doesn't need a reason that makes sense to a normal person. I do not understand why I got the treatment I did. It sickens me that those meant to protect us from this very thing, when the time comes, they are so quick to misjudge or dismiss. I could see if maybe I had a history of drugs or mental illness or delusional thoughts, but there is none of that and no reason for them to have treated me the way that they did. I often wondered if him or his mom maybe phoned the police to make complaints about me because it just didn't make sense. I do know that at some point they were trying to convince my youngest son I was crazy and losing it. I have Chiron in my 10th house of career, public reputation, and authority figures, like police. In astrology, Chiron is an asteroid and known as the wounded healer. Our Chiron placement shows where we have traumas, vulnerabilities, and areas of life we are misunderstood. Chiron being in my 10th house in my natal chart would indicate that throughout my life, I would be misunderstood, especially by those with authority and power. Let's move on to one of the flying monkeys, his mother. A woman who has spent years warning me about him, telling me he's troubled and incapable of being a father. But the moment I came to her with the truth, she turned her head. She chose to believe his lies over the mother of her grandson. She's always tried to put me in the same box as him, bending the truth to fit her narrative. She had the audacity to tell me she remembers me saying that I always disliked my stepson. This is something she has completely made up in her head. I know for a fact I've never said that because I've never felt that way. I have 2 children with someone else. Why would that ever be a problem? Oh, I know, because that's how she felt about her stepchildren. So, once again, trying to put me in the same box to suit her narrative. She also mentioned how I had texted him during our 2.5 year breakup to hook up, which is not the case at all. I never text him for anything other than to discuss our son. But now that I know he had my phone cloned for years, he was probably fabricating a reality to show his village so that when I finally spoke up, he already had them convinced I was the crazy one. Well, sorry, but lies are not facts and don't create reality. They create delusions. And you guys are trying to say I'm the crazy one. I am not going to sit here and act like I was perfect. That is far from the truth. I have just as many problems as anyone else, especially when it comes to abandonment issues and codependency. I have self awareness to work on my unhealed self so I can heal and grow. When I got back with him, I was probably in the best place I've been in a long time, especially mentally. I took 2.5 years to literally just focus on healing and then establishing my astrology business. I was happy. The funny thing is that the people in his life believe he doesn't even know how to create an email. Meanwhile, he's coding private websites and managing GitHub accounts. He is a master manipulator with multiple personas. I told him on numerous occasions that everything hidden would be coming to light. Saturn was transiting my seventh house of partnerships and his 12th house of secrets. In astrology, Saturn is the lord of karma. You can try to hack a network, you can try to bribe a village of flying monkeys, and you can try to trick the police, but you cannot hack the universe. His narcissistic mindset told him he was above the stars, but Saturn is a patient teacher. My message today is this: if someone comes to you with concerns about their partner and you know their heart, believe them. Don't turn your head because the truth is too hard to wrap your mind around. By turning your head, you become a brick in their prison wall. Society needs to level up. The police need to wake up to digital stalking. And to those of you scrolling through TikTok recovery pages, reading these stories and feeling alone, you are not crazy. You are being targeted, and the fog is finally lifting. Before I go today, I want to talk to those of you who are currently in the thick of it. If you are hearing bird sounds, if your Wi Fi feels compromised, or if the people around you are looking at you like you're crazy, I have something for you. I've created a special resource called the Survivor's Vault, a guide to legal documentation. When the system fails us, we have to become our own best witnesses. This PDF breaks down exactly how I began documenting the digital footprints, how to log the flying monkeys interactions, and how to build a case that the authorities can't ignore, even if they try. I've made this available exclusively for my Patreon members. You can find the link in the show notes or over on my Instagram at Adeana's Diary. Don't just hope for the truth to come out, document it. Build your vault because your sanity isn't a theory, it's a fact. I'll see you next week when we go back to the beginning to look at the signs I ignored and the astrology that predicted the storm.